big welcome to all our schools from Virginia Beach, Shelton, Greenhorn and Greenwood elementary schools today. My name is Brent Smith. I have Dangerous Dave on camera, and hidden in the tree next to us is a beautiful young male leopard. He's just over 2 years old, and he's caught himself an antelope called a bush buck. And the reason he's put it in the tree is so that the hyenas can't steal it from him. Right, there we go. You can see it's not the biggest tree. So what happened, I think, is he had to put it up the tree in a big hurry while being chased by a hyena. But now he's managing to snack on it a little bit. One of the nice things for leopards about keeping their kills in the trees is that, apart from the fact that no one can steal it from you, you don't have to eat it as fast as possible. You can take your time and eat it in little goes because you're not at risk of losing it. So he's about 2 years old. His name is Hosana, which means the little chief. And he is one of my favorite leopards, so always great to spend time with Hosana, even though he's showing one of the most important things a leopard has in its defensive and offensive arsenal, and that's his camouflage. You can see even in a green tree, those black rosettes and yellow coloring help break up his outline and make him nearly invisible. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so while I sit here with this beautiful leopard, I'm going to give all you guys a chance to get your leopard questions ready. So get your leopard questions ready. Next time you come to see me, I'll be waiting to hear all your wonderful questions. But in the meantime, Scott's got something that's the biggest thing out here in the African bush.
Yes, the animal that we have found is definitely easier to find than the leopard that Brent did so well with this morning and again this afternoon. So happy that you guys have got off to a great safari so far. And my name is Scott, and it's great to have you guys on board with myself and Seb on camera. So, Kegon, you would like to know, what do elephants eat? And if you look ahead here, it's difficult because he's got his head in the bush, but that is exactly what he's feeding on. He's feeding on the leaves of this bush. And interestingly, elephants are quite fussy, and they like to feed on different trees and different parts of trees at different time of the year. So depending on what the sweetest food is for them, that is what they will feed on. They love to eat the fruits from some trees. They eat grass, they eat leaves, they eat bark, they eat roots. So anything that is a plant really is what they like. But again, it does depend on the time of year. There you can see he's got a very big trunk full of leaves. And what an interesting nose they have. Imagine if our nose was that long, and that if we had to put our food into our mouth with our nose, if we had to suck water into our nostrils and blow it into our mouth. And Grace, you were just asking about how does the elephant get the water from out of its trunk into its mouth? Well, it blows its nose. It just blows air, and that puts pressure against the water, and it goes flying straight into their mouth. So, very, very clever animals, and a very, very interesting and kind of special adaptation that they have with that very long trunk. You wouldn't believe that such a big animal could pick up something as small as a peanut with that big trunk. And Landon, you would like to know if elephants are warm or cold-blooded. And they are warm-blooded animals, and they are part of the mammal family. Just like us, we are mammals, and so are elephants. And basically anything that their baby needs to drink milk from the mammary glands is going to be a mammal and is going to be warm-blooded. And we won't be able to show you any mammary glands on this one because this is a young boy. It's just the mother that has those mammary glands. And there you can see a little bit of his face. Oh, you're missing a tusk. So he's lost one of his teeth. I wonder how he lost it. Well, it wouldn't have been from chewing on meat, not like Hosana, and that is where we are going to send you straight back to with Brent and the leopard up the tree.
Well, Hosana is still chewing on that young bushbuck, and every now and then he nearly falls out of the tree because it's not in the best spot, that young bushbuck. Unfortunately for him, as I said, I think he put that meat in a big rush up the tree when the hyenas were around. Hello, Haley. Haley is wondering, what do leopards eat? Well, Haley, you can see they've got big teeth, and he's eating another antelope. Antelope that's probably a bit smaller than a white-tailed deer, called a bushbuck. And so leopards eat meat. It means they are carnivores. So carnivores eat meat, and herbivores eat trees or grasses. Now, I've got a question for all of you in Virginia Beach. I hope you guys are ready. Are you ready? I want to get these questions through to your teachers as fast as possible. Who's going to be first? Who's going to be the smartest? If carnivores eat meat and herbivores eat trees and leaves, what do omnivores eat? Now, get the answer to your teacher, and let's see who's going to be correct first. Kevin is wondering, do all leopards hunt for food? Yes, they do. They hunt what we would call small to medium-sized antelope. They'll also hunt pigs like warthog, and even sometimes big lizards or little crocodiles. But yes, all leopards in the wild will hunt for their own food. Now you can see when he turns his head sideways like that, he's using his special teeth that are like a really sharp pair of scissors to cut through the skin so he can get to the meat. Now, Ashley's wondering, why do leopards have spots? Well, Ashley, it's to help them with camouflage. So the spots and rosettes help break out their outline, which helps them to hide when they're trying to catch their dinner. So it helps them to sort of disappear and merge into the bush, and it helps them when they're hunting. So they have the spots to help with camouflage. So Dave's going to show you now, as he goes a little bit wider, you can see how those spots help hide the leopard. If we go even a little bit wider, the leopard almost disappears. So that's what those spots do. It's to help it hide away, so it's easy, so it can catch animals more easily, or so it can hide from other animals that might want to hurt it, like lions or hyenas. Well done, Kyra. Kyra was the first person to get what is an omnivore, and you are spot on. It is something that eats both meat and vegetable matter, so both plants and animals. And guess what? Human beings are omnivores because we eat veggies and we eat meat. Well, some of us eat both, some of us only eat one. There we go, you can see his tail hanging there. Now, a leopard's tail is quite important. It helps with balance when he's climbing, and it also can help. Oh, there it goes. It also, when mummy leopard's got babies, it helps the babies to follow her through the bush. Now, Steve's got another kind of leopard, and I bet you never knew there was a reptilian leopard.
Good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome to my segment on the safari, and I've got a little friend with me in the road, a leopard tortoise. My name is Steve Falconbridge. Welcome to another episode of Safari Live. I'm joined by Senzo Mkhize on the camera, and our tortoise is running away. So I'm not going to grab him and pick him up because he's going right under the car, and it's actually quite stressful to pick a tortoise up in the summertime, even in the winter time, purely because the tortoise has got a very special sac inside their tummy that they store water. So they drink a lot of water when they get to a pond or to a dam, and then they can go away, because as you've seen, they're very slow, except for this guy, he's quite fast. They're normally quite slow, so they can't afford to go to the water every day and come back. So they store it inside a big sack inside their tummy, and if you pick them up, you can actually stress them out and causes them to drop that water, and you could almost cause their death. So we don't play with tortoises. This time of year it's not so bad, but in the dry season, we are in the wet season now, our summer months. In the dry season it gets very, very hot and very dry. So we are going to continue on. My objective for the day is I'm just bumbling around Djuma looking for anything wonderful. Brent, how fantastic that he's managed to find a leopard so early on in the drive. For you boys and girls, that is incredible. And who knows what Scott has found so far. I think he had an elephant. We're going to go around, check all the dams, all the water holes, because that is where the animals like to hang out. But first I have to make sure that this tortoise is okay. I think he's under my car, so I don't want to squash him. I'm going to have to move him now, because if I don't, I could squash him. But while we consider moving this tortoise from underneath my vehicle, let's go back over to Brent and that beautiful prince, Hosana.
Well, there we go. It seems like the leopard tortoise was trying to hide under Steve's car. Now, of course, they get their name leopard tortoise from their pretty markings on their shell that resembles leopard spots. And there we go. You can see those big, long teeth on the leopard, and I wonder if anyone knows the name of those teeth. If you know the name of the long white teeth that you can see there, let me know. Tell your teacher, what are those long teeth called? Now, your dog at home will also have them, so most predators have it. Well, hello Atticus and Elena. Atticus and Elena would like to know, how do leopards climb trees? Now, they use their incredible strength and their claws. So you can't see at the moment there on his foot, but he's got very big claws that he will sink into the bark and then use his muscles to pull him up the tree. Now, leopards often like to leave their kills in trees that have got lots of leaves like this, so vultures can't spot it, and because even birds can steal the food from the leopards, because sometimes when he's eating his meat, he might get a bit thirsty, so he'll leave it up in the tree and wander off to go get a drink, and he comes back, and the birds have eaten it all. So that's why they like thicker trees, and they've got a bit of cover in them, that the kill is hidden from even predatory birds. Now, Theo would like to know, how fast can a leopard run? And the answer is very fast. Now, but they can't run very fast for very long. So their top speed is between 22 and 24 meters per second. But they can only do that for about 10 meters or so. And they are ambush predators. So they stay very still, and they'll try to sneak on their tummies, just like your cat would, and they'll sneak very close to whatever they are trying to catch, and then they leap at that incredibly fast speed, which is around 70 kilometers an hour if you had to do it that way, but 24 meters per second. Normally a leopard will only pounce on a prey item when it is less than 5 meters away. Ooh, Lincoln Park Elementary has given an answer for the teeth, and it's a very good guess, but unfortunately it's wrong. It is not incisors. So you've got a few more guesses to go. Who's going to be first? So unfortunately, it is not incisors. I will show you his incisors now if he lets us. Is he going to let us, Dave, or do I need to move the car? Oh dear. So his incisors are between the long white teeth. They're those small little ones that are between the long white teeth in the front. Oh, Aubrey, difficult question. You're going to catch me out here. How many teeth does a leopard have? I've got to remember now. So it's 4, 12. I'm not 100% sure, but if I remember correctly, I think it's 16. So 4 long white ones, because I'm not going to give the name away, and then 8 incisors, 2 premolars, 2 molars. Is that 18 or 16? Let me try to start again. Okay, so 18 or 20. So so the ones right at the back are called molars. The ones just before are called premolars, and then you have the long white ones, and then the incisors. Now, it's quite a cool afternoon. There's a little bit of a breeze going. You can see the leaves moving of the tree. Now, the tree he is in is called a tambuti tree. But quickly across to Scotty, who's got a feathered friend.
Yes, we found a bird called a red-backed shrike. And isn't that black stripe across its eye quite cool? Oh, itchy head. Good scratch there. And what's interesting about this little bird is that it comes from a long way away. It comes from the northern parts of Africa, which is a very, very far way away, probably about 3,000 miles away, maybe a little bit more than that. This tiny little bird has flown all the way here to enjoy our summer. And the reason why it would like to come and enjoy the summer here is not just because of the sunny weather, but it's mainly because of all the bugs and insects and food that are around. So it's not just big birds like storks that you may know migrate long distances, but also some very small birds that also have to fly a very long way every year, backwards and forwards, to get to their summer homes. And what that means is that they always live their life in summer, because when they are in the southern hemisphere, like they are here now, it's summer, and then when it starts becoming winter, they fly to the north of the equator, and then they get to have the summer in the next part of the world that they go to. So very clever, and quite nice for them that they don't ever have to deal with winter. Wonderful. Now, unlike Brent, we don't have a leopard, but we are going to be searching for one. We're going to be searching for a female leopard who's got a little cub that's just 4 months old. And we saw her yesterday, and Brent's had some of her tracks, and he told me where those tracks, their footprints on the ground, were going. So now we're going to continue checking around. And we rely a lot on following the animal's footprints to find them, because as you see, the bush here is very, very thick. So just to drive around hoping you're going to spot one of them, especially with their good camouflage, makes it very difficult. That's why, by using our eyes to not just look for the animals, but look for their tracks that we can then follow, and also to use our ears to listen to any sounds, because we can hear for further than we can see. Now, Lucas, you would like to know what this bird, the red-backed shrike, likes to eat. And it likes to eat little insects. So, like most animals that are hunters, that are carnivorous, they can't be too fussy because it's very difficult for the predators to catch their prey. So lots of different insects, worms, grasshoppers, flies, termites, maybe even kind of Small reptiles like a baby lizard or a tiny baby snake would also be fed on by this little bird. And I think that's what it's doing now. It's just kind of perched here looking for any possible food in the grass below. There's a few other birds that I can hear calling. The Cape turtle dove. Cuckoo, cuckoo, cuckoo. But I actually can't see where it is up in the tree. But we're going to be sending you across to a very strange scene of something else in a tree. I bet you're going to have a laugh.
Thanks, Scotty. Yes, indeed, something very strange in the tree. It happens to be me, up in a beautiful, beautiful tree called a Marula tree. Here is the lovely leaf, if I can hold it without the wind blowing it too crazy. Apologies for that if it does blow, but it is blowing quite strong up here. And these leaves are marvelous. If, for example, you ever happen to have sort of any tummy problems, especially sort of acid reflux in your chest, you can take a couple of these leaves and you can eat them. They don't taste very nice though. And try and swallow that, and it will soothe the pain in your chest, which is, I think, a marvelous thing out here in the African wilderness. But the reason for me being up in this tree, the leopard takes its kill up in the tree because, first of all, it's nice and cool up here. The wind is much stronger than it is down on the ground. So on hot days, especially in the summer months, lots of wind blowing through. You can see how the leaves around me are moving much more than, well, you can't see the ground from the shot, but I can tell you it is moving much more. And they can also see from a distance. Not only do they bring their kills up here, they also like to sleep up here because they can see impala, bushbuck, any of their food sort of hanging around, and then they can move down and go and stalk and see if they can catch them. I've got a very, very good view of the surroundings here, and it is a marvelous, marvelous scene. And for me, this is the best classroom in the world, in the wilderness, teaching people how to be not just on the ground, but in the trees, teaching them about the trees, the leaves, this seed kernel that I got from the Marula as well. This is what the elephants like to eat. It's a big, fresh, juicy, succulent fruit around this, but all that the greedy elephants have left us today is this little seed kernel, which inside, you can see those little holes, almost like a bowling ball. That is where the squirrel has chewed out the seeds inside. He's got himself a very nice nut. Very tasty and very good for you, but they haven't left us very much. We're a little bit late in the year. But what is also very interesting, boys and girls, is with this tree, marvelous tree of the African wilderness, is if you damage the bark and you actually stick a knife in here to get the cambium, which is the blood network of the bark inside, and you get a rash or a bite or a sting or anything like that, and you rub it on there, it'll quickly take away the pain. So it works as an antihistamine. There's lots of tablets on the market for cream or for tablets for rubbing on injuries like that, which work very well. But in nature, Mother Nature has all the answers for us. So isn't that marvelous? Sorry, Nikki, you can go again with that question. I didn't quite get it. Hello, Carter. You want to know what leaves eat? Carter, leaves are green. You can see how green they are here. And the green is because they got something inside them called chlorophyll. Now, don't worry too much about that word. But what that means is that they can take the energy from the sun, and they can turn the energy from the sun into sugar and into food. And with that, they then grow and grow and grow and produce fruit and flowers and roots and stems and bark. The grasses are the same because they're green. They have that chlorophyll inside, which allows them to make their own food. So they don't have to eat anything. All they need is the nutrients from the soil, which comes up into the plant with the sunlight, and they produce everything that the wilderness needs. So everything out here that eats grass and leaves, they then get eaten by leopards and lions, and then the whole cycle goes on in a circle like that. Niall, the birthday boy, happy birthday. Our male and female tortoise is the same. They look very, very similar. The only way to tell the difference is if you look beneath the tortoise on the bottom of the shell, the male is going to be flat and the female is going to be a little bit, can you see that sense? A little bit dented on the bottom. It's not a very good example. It's dented underneath for the female and the male is flat. That is the only real way to identify them. Obviously, you can take blood and you can do all these things, but in the wilderness, it's very quick and easy to do it that way. But remember what I said about picking up tortoises? It's not a good idea because they can lose their water. So I'm going to eventually climb down this tree and stop monkeying around, and while I do so, let's go over to another cat who I believe is in the tree with some food.
Well, he's come down the tree faster than Steve could, and he's left some meat up there, but he's decided he's had enough snacking for now, so he's just relaxing at the base of the tree he was climbing in. Now, Steve was teaching you lots about trees there, and he was teaching you about the Marula tree. Now, as I said, the leopard was in a tree called a Tumburti tree, and I'm just going to move the car. We're not going to look at the Tumburti tree that's really close to the leopard. We're going to look at this Tumburti tree over here. Let me just swing around. Get us a little bit closer to one. Now, when you pick the leaves of the Tumburti tree, you've got to be very careful, because they've got poison in them. Oh, dangerous. Doop. Okay. Oh, that one's not... Oh, no, the wind took it away. Okay, let's try that again. Let me try a little branch this time. Might work a bit. There we go. I'll hold it there. Now, if you look very carefully, you see there's some white, milky stuff coming out of the branch. Now, that is very, very poisonous. It will burn your skin. Now, in traditional African medicine, it can be used to burn warts off people, and then also certain animals use it as medicine. So giraffe and kudu and black rhino, if they've got lots of bad worms in their tummy, they will actually eat this, and it'll poison the worms in their tummy. They'll only eat a little bit of it, and then they'll get sick from that, and they get rid of all their bad worms. So that's the Tumburti tree. So you've got to be quite careful when you hold it. So I'm going to put that away so I don't burn myself with the milky latex, is what it's called. Now, most trees that have that milky latex can be possibly dangerous. There are a few that are not, but a lot of the trees that have milky latex can be dangerous for people. There we go. You can see even how his camouflage works on the ground next to the elephant dung. Hello, Gabby. Gabby would like to know, do all leopards have the same spots? No, they don't, Gabby. Each individual leopard has its own unique set of spots. Just like we've got our own unique fingerprints, they've got their own unique spots. Here you can see him breathing heavily. Now imagine if you've just eaten a big dinner or a big lunch, and your tummy's very full, and you get lazy and you want to go have a nap. That's what he's doing right now. Now, he'll probably finish this today, and then he might even hunt again tomorrow. Hello, Reimer. Reimer's wondering, how old do leopards live? Well, it all depends, Reimer, but in the wild, male leopards will normally live to about 12 or 13 years old, and females to about 15 years old. So, and that's normally, but it all depends. Sometimes they do get killed when they're much younger, or when they are a lot older. His mom, I think, lived to 13, if I remember correctly. But his great-grandmother lived to sort of 17, so it all depends. Or his grandmother, not his great-grandmother. Now, a lot of you out there at Lincoln Park are wondering what is the difference between a cheetah and a leopard. Well, a leopard has got rosettes. So it doesn't have individual spots. It's got little groupings of spots called a rosette. A cheetah is much taller, much skinnier. Its head is much rounder. But if we look at the rosettes, you can see some nice ones on his back there. That will show you very clearly. Those are rosettes, not individual spots. Let me see. I think I have a cheetah around here somewhere. Okay, so there we go. That is a cheetah. So, and you can see leopards like living where there are trees and stuff like that, and you can see the cheetahs out in the big open grassland, and you can see individual spots rather than rosettes. And you see around its eyes, it's got that black almost tear mark coming down around its eyes, which means it is more of a diurnal or crepuscular hunter, which means it likes to hunt in the day more, and that dark helps to deal with the sun. So it's like a cheetah's sunglasses, whereas leopards and lions have light coloring under their eyes, which helps them see better at night, like night vision glasses. So that's one of the differences between the cheetah and the leopard. Jacoby is wondering, why is he breathing so hard? As I was just saying, Jacoby, it's because his tummy's full and digestion causes heat, and he's trying to expel that heat by breathing. So leopards can't sweat, so how they keep cool is to breathe heavily and bring cool air over the blood vessels in their mouth. Oh, well, Cleghorn is wondering about the Tumbuerty trees. Well, there's some bigger ones, the ones that are next to him. You can see they've got bark that looks a little bit like a crocodile's skin, and you guys are wondering whether they only occur in Africa. They do only occur in Africa, so they don't occur anywhere else or any other continent, but they occur along the more arid parts of Africa through southern and east Africa, the Tumbuerty tree. Well, it seems like Steve has made his way down the tree, but he's climbed up on top of something else.
Yes, I have. Thank you very much. A very nice big mound I am sitting on, and we will talk about that in a moment. But what is marvelous about this environment we live in is I have found a nice ball of elephant dung. Now, I'm sure Scott was telling you before what they feed on, and in this elephant dung, what you can mainly see is, this time of year, let me just put that one down, is grass. Lots and lots of grass particles inside there. The elephants in our summer months feed almost totally on grass, and they move around, and as they feed, they will drop their dung all over the place, and that is taking vegetation. We spoke about the Marula tree just now and why it was green. So taking the sugars and the food from the tree or from the grass and then moving it and putting it somewhere else. Just like this here. This is some grass that has been dropped from an elephant busy feeding. And the reason why I'm talking about these two things is because these are organic material. They need to be recycled back into the soil. And what I am sitting on is the biggest recycler we have in Africa, is a termite mound, and inside we have millions and millions and millions of very small little termites that will pick up this material and will take it inside and process it like a recycling plant, and the nutrients will come back into the soil. Isn't that marvelous? It's the whole circle of life. And then those nutrients that are in the soil come up again in the grasses, and the grasses are green. And then we can eat them. Not only can we eat the grass, as I said before, they are small plants in and around with little fruits like this one. This is from a white raisin, and it's very nice. It's nice and sweet, but it's got a very big seed. Very big seed, but it's got a very nice taste. Okay, so this is a raisin we get in South Africa. Not the type of raisin you get that's a grape. And you can only eat plants that you know, boys and girls. Be very careful eating anything out there. And you must come here and spend some time with us, because we know all the things you can and can't do. But look what's underneath me. Can you see a hole in the ground? I'm quite scared to put my head in there, because there could be a warthog. There could be a honey badger. There could be anything inside this hole. Senzo has asked me to go inside, but I'm a little bit scared to go inside, because anything in there could be smelly or dirty or could bite me. So I'm going to rather stay above. But what's important is that the big termite mound that you see, there are many, many, many animals that will live inside of these mounds. So it's a home for them. It's a shelter. It keeps them cool. It keeps them warm. It's very, very important in our ecosystems here in Africa. Shelton Park, the weather that we're having right now, we're in our summer months. We're going into autumn. We're having a very nice cool day after 2 very hot days that got up to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And there was some rain forecast for this afternoon, purely because of very hot weather that we had. But this is the summer months going into autumn, so we expect a bit of rain and quite high temperatures. And in the next month or two, it's going to start getting very dry. No rainfall at all, and the temperatures are going to get to, on average, about 10 to 18 degrees Celsius. So that is 30 plus. That's about 60 degrees Fahrenheit on average. So a lot cooler than we're having it at the moment, even though today is quite lovely. But very, very nice seasonal changes we get with our summer and our winter. Ashley, what an amazing question. What animals eat termites? Well, first of all, we can eat termites. When they get their wings and they fly to go be reproductive and make new nests, we can eat them. All sorts of birds will eat them. Even vultures will stand there and eat them. Vervet monkeys I've seen standing and grabbing them as they go. But the animal that's most sort of enjoying termites is something called an aardvark. And I can show you in my book just now, which is all the way over there. It's got a very long nose. It's also known as an ant bear. In South Africa, we call it an aardvark, which means an earth pig, if you translate that. And they are the ones who create these holes. They dig. And then inside they eat on, they reckon, 10,000 termites every single day. Can you imagine that? And then all sorts of other things will eat them. Okay, so let me sneak past this hole. Wow, Olivia, how many grains of sand are there in the world? There's a lot of termites in there, Olivia, a lot. I have no idea. What you see above the ground is only about a third. There's another 2/3 underneath the ground, and all they're doing is breaking down this organic material and turning it back into the soil. But I couldn't tell you how many. So many. Millions and millions of termites. Okay, so I hope that's given you some nice insight into the life of termites and how important they are in the ecology of this environment. And they're very small. You've seen the biggest elephant, and we haven't seen the termite, but they're very small, and they're equally or even more important. Well, while we get ready to move off, let's go over to Scott, who's found himself a muddy bit of water.
Hello everyone, welcome back. As you can see, I'm out the vehicle and checking around a small little pond of water here. And this is the area where Brent had tracks of the leopard and her little cub, where they came from their kill that they finished feeding on last night, and then they came here and drank around, and I'm just exploring to see if I can find any further sign as to which direction they've gone from here. But it's very difficult. The ground's quite hard here, so I'm not having too much luck. And it's just important to jump out the vehicle every now and then, have a look around. It's definitely easier to see the animal's footprints when you are walking around. You can kind of bob your head from side to side and check the road carefully. And we're going to keep doing that, keep hopping out in areas where we're feeling lucky, and hopefully we will find some footprints that will then lead us to the leopard. It's, for me, the ultimate treasure hunt, trying to find these animals. And every day, I guess, is like a treasure hunt for us. Lots of different treasure that we can find, and lots of places for them to hide in. Zachary, you would like to know if leopards are as fast as cheetah. And no, they are not. Cheetah are the fastest mammals on the planet. So they move very quickly. The leopard aren't slow though, but they're not as fast as the cheetah. And also what's quite important to understand about the difference between... Oh, quickly, Seb. There's a bird raiding a nest. And this is absolutely crazy. You can just see it dangling from the nest, and it's trying to get the babies or the eggs out of that nest. How cool is this? And this is actually a young eagle. Oh, it just ate something. Did it? Or was I dreaming? No, I think it was just a leaf. And they've got very long legs that they can actually bend and double joints, bend out of shape, in order to be able to get into the funny angles. Now, this is absolutely incredible. Now, what we could also expect to see is possibly some other birds coming in and trying to rescue the baby birds in this nest. Maybe the adults will come back, and if not the adults, maybe some other birds will come and try and give this big eagle a hard time. It's called an African Harrier Hawk, and Seb, who's filming, has spent many years filming African wildlife, and he's never seen anything like this. So that gives you an idea of just how lucky we all are to be witnessing this very, very interesting scene. And of course it is sad that maybe these baby birds will get eaten from in the nest, but a lot of animals that live on the planet need to eat meat, which means other animals need to die in order for their survival. And I guess we are the same. A lot of people, just like you and me, also like to eat meat. But it can sometimes be a little bit tricky to watch. Well, as you can see, the Harrier Hawk, which is the name of this bird, is having a difficult time trying to get its foot into the kind of bowl of the nest. But I'm fairly certain it can hear the baby birds in there, so it knows there's something in there. It's trying to break the nest apart, but the twigs are quite strong, as you can see, so it's not having much luck. Imagine how tired it is, holding on there, hanging on upside down. I wonder if I can't move back ever so slightly, just to make sure there's no branches in the way. That should be better. As you can see, we're quite a way off, and we're not interfering in any way. So that's the good news. We're just merely watching, just like people like to watch sports matches. We enjoy watching the wild animals here go about their business. Now, it doesn't seem like it's wanting to give up. I'm confident it knows that there's baby birds in there. I'm surprised that no other birds have come over to give it a hard time. Even though it's big, lots of small birds are very, very brave, and they'll fly in, and because they're smaller than the eagles, they can be a bit more quick and a bit more agile and peck them on the head and just bother them until they maybe give up. But sadly, the neighborhood is not coming to the rescue. This is absolutely crazy. And this bird actually specializes in raiding nests. It's what it does best, and it's not good at catching fast-moving prey. Most of their prey they pluck out of holes and trees or from within a nest like this. Looks like it's trying to get its beak in through a small gap in the branches there. But it's not having any joy. Looks like quite a big hole that it's made there, though. Hard to be certain, though, but it maybe can't get its beak in deep enough. Kareen, you would like to know what kind of eagle this is, and it's actually it's not actually an eagle, even though it looks like one. It's called a Harrier Hawk. So you get lots of different birds of prey, or raptors. Some are vultures, some are eagles, some are buzzards, some are falcons, but they're all meat-eating birds, and a lot of them do look similar. But officially, if you want to be an eagle, you have to have feathers on your legs. And as you can see, this bird has got long legs without feathers on it. Landon, no, it's not trying to eat its own eggs. It's trying to eat the eggs from a bird called the red-headed forest weaver. That is the bird that is responsible for building this nest. And the weavers are very clever birds that can build these wonderful nests where they weave together little bits of branches and grass in order to build their nest. This is actually quite a scruffy nest for weavers, as far as the weavers go. Absolutely insane. Well, again, it's not giving up. We're going to stay here and keep an eye on it. We'll call you back as soon as anything interesting happens. But Steve has found you guys one of the tallest animals we see out here.
How amazing is this, boys and girls? We found the tallest land mammal in the world. Isn't that fantastic? Look how big he is. And he is busy eating leaves. We can't see it in front of him because there's another animal there, but he's disappeared. But that giraffe has got the tallest neck to allow him to eat the leaves from where I was sitting in the tree. Do you remember when I was in the tree? That giraffe can get to that spot in the tree and no one else can feed that high. Isn't that fantastic? So the giraffe will eat leaves, only leaves, and then also when it has to go to the toilet, the pellets that it drops will also be eaten by termites and will go back into the soil. So right now he is busy chewing the leaves to make them a lot smaller, getting lots of saliva around the leaves to help him to digest them. And isn't he beautiful? I say boy because those big sort of horns on the top of his head are bald because he uses them for fighting. I'm very happy I was able to find you a giraffe this afternoon. They are one of the prettiest animals in the African kingdom. Watch him swallow. Oh, and there he did it again, chewing some more leaves. Go forward just a touch, Senzi. Maybe you can get that kudu. Just there in the bushes is a very camouflaged animal. There he is. He also eats the leaves, but look how much smaller he is than the giraffe. The giraffe is super big, and the kudu is not so big. But yet the kudu is the second largest antelope that we find here, and also he's a male with very long, very spirally and sharp horns. And there we go. His camouflage has made him disappear. And we would like to thank all the boys and girls who joined us for the afternoon school safari. I hope you have a wonderful day, the rest of your school day. Don't forget to do your homework. And remember how important termites and elephants are in the African wilderness. Have a beautiful morning further, and we will chat to you on your next school activity. Good afternoon to all the regular viewers. Welcome back with us this afternoon. So marvelous to have this giraffe just doing his thing with two kudu bulls. I'm sure the kudus are quite happy to have the giraffe with his eagle eyes peering around because it's quite windy. Leopards and lions could be sneaking up on them. And while we talk about leopards, let's go back over to Brent Leo Smith, who has the little prince.
Hi everyone. And you can see Hosana has found himself a pillow. He's very much enjoying that tambourji branch. He's lying right up against it, using it as a headrest. Looking very, very comfortable. Little Hosana. Well, not so little Hosana anymore. Isn't he? Turning into quite the large chap. I still think his half-brother, or Quarantine, was slightly bigger at this age. But I'm not 100% sure. It was a long time ago that Quarantine was a little leopard. trying to get comfortable with that very fat belly of his. Well, hello, Shawshank. Yes, indeed, it is Brent. It's Brent with a haircut. Yes, I'm here. I'm back at Djuma for a while, and yes, it's great to be back. And my first leopard is Hosana. It's my third drive, I think, back at Djuma. So thoroughly enjoying being back in the Lowveld and spending some time with one of my favorite leopards in the world, the little chief of Djuma. Well, probably not, unfortunately, not forever, as in not too long, young Hosana is going to have to make his way in the world and go find a territory of his own. If he's lucky, like Quarantine, who I was just mentioning, he won't have to move too far. If he's unlucky, he might have to go very, very far. As you think about it, both Quarantine and Kunyuma got quite lucky that they didn't have to move too far from their natal range. Ladybird's wondering how long is Hosana, with or without his tail, Ladybird. Without his tail, he's probably about 1.2 meters, 1.3 meters long. With his tail, he'll be well over 2. Say he probably weighs around 65 to 70 kilograms, or between 60 and 70 kilograms at the moment. And once he's fully grown, difficult to be 100% sure, but I think he'll probably weigh around 80 odd kilograms once he's fully grown. Be interesting to see. As I say, we can never be 100% sure who the dad is. It's most likely to be Tingana, but Kruger also mated with Djuma and Anderson during that time period. So it's going to be, I'd say, just due to the frequency of mating with Tingana, it's most likely Tingana, but it could be one of the other males. Now, Ravinda said, I saw some micro spots on his nose. How useful are those going to be for ID? I'm sure they could be useful, but the problem with noses is they tend to get ripped up and torn up in fights and when feeding and that. And that's why those spot patterns just above his top lip. There we go. Good boy. Good boy. You can see, there we go, on his left, there are 3 spots above the last line of whiskers. Those are the best in terms of ID. Now, also, there's a couple of different distinguishing features on Hosana, and, well, if you spend as much time with the leopards as we have, I mean, this morning I haven't seen Hosana in a year, and I managed to say, oh, who's that? Ah, it's Hosana. You can just see the shape of his face as well. Now, as I say, I think he's going to be quite lazy for the rest of the afternoon, so I'm probably going to take a little wander around. Ah, we have a new viewer and a very, very good afternoon. Well, if you're in Africa, to Hayward. It could be morning, noon or night if you're somewhere else in the world. And Hayward's wondering, where exactly are we in Africa? Well, this young leopard is sitting in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, which is in the eastern or northeastern part of South Africa in the province of Mpumalanga. Now, Mpumalanga means where the sun rises. Mpuma is to come out and Langa is sun. So where the sun rises is the east, so in the northeast of South Africa. The Sabi Sands Game Reserve is open to the Greater Kruger National Park, so it is part of a 2.7 million hectare unfenced, open, natural ecosystem where these animals are able to wander wild and free. So I hope that helps, Hayward, and a big welcome to the Safari Live family. I hope you keep joining us on these live African safaris. Now, as I said, he's been quite a lazy kitty, and I'm going to go take a little wander about to see if I can find anything else. It's quite a tight little section in here, and there are some other game drive vehicles who are going to be coming to enjoy Hosana. Probably come back a little bit later, but in the meantime, let's send you across to Scott to see what's happening with that African Harrier Hawk.
Well, we've stayed put. As you saw, as we sent you guys away a bit earlier, the Harrier Hawk flew off. And we thought just to give it a few minutes, I thought maybe it would come back and carry on trying to pluck out whatever was in that nest after it had a bit of a breather, but no joy just yet, so I think it's given up. I think we are going to be working this area though, because this is where we're hoping to find Thandi. So who knows, maybe a little bit later we'll find a similar scene unfolding. Epic stuff. So I'm just going to squiggle along this road here and loop around the area where Brent last had her tracks this morning. They were kind of heading off to our left. But I'm guessing she would have gone off and tried to do some hunting once she stashed the cub somewhere. There's lots of good places where she could stash the cub here. Lots of little riverbeds and thick areas. So I'm hoping we're going to find maybe just some tracks of her heading off hunting. AB, you'd like to know if some leopards ever struggle or fail to find their own territory and establish their own territory. Yes, I'm sure it does happen. You know, some small, weaker males who run up against stiff competition might get killed along the way before they can ever be dominant and mate. But I think eventually, you know, a leopard may get at least a small territory and maybe just one girlfriend for a time of his life. But yes, there definitely will be, you know, some individuals that struggle. And I guess, you know, just like with us as humans, when you think about the wild animals, you can very often think of a human similarity to any events. And, you know, through luck, some people might be in the right place at the right time to start a good business if there's not lots of competition. And in the same notes, they could also be unlucky and be up against very steep competition, just depending on where they might be and, you know, how things unfold for them. Very good. We're going to continue scratching about and race you off to Steve with the bird.
And look what we found. We found ourselves a woodland kingfisher that's busy smashing a beetle of some kind against the branch. He's doing that to pulverize and to break the exoskeleton and to maybe soften him up a little bit like a tenderized steak before he drops him in the mouth. Let's see him hit it once again. Come on. One more smash. There we go. They fell off the head. Ooh. That's how I like to eat my prawns, eh? Shell and all. Marvelous. That did look very uncomfortable. So for those of you who are familiar with these birds, this is the woodland kingfisher, and he is now busy cleaning his beak. He's been building up bulk. I think they've finished their breeding ultimately, and they're bulking up to get prepared for their flights back to the north, so somewhere in middle, sort of south of the Sahara in Africa. And they'll be picking up a huge amount of weight in order to conduct that journey, because they won't feed too much along the way. So they need to build up huge amounts of fat reserves and energy for the flight. Isn't that marvelous? What a show we had. Yes, Tom, they do look very similar to kookaburras. I'm actually not sure if they are part of the same family. I wonder if anyone else out there knows. I'm not sure, to be honest. But they've got a very similar sort of look to them. But their calls are very, there it goes. Their calls are very, very different. The kookaburra's got very sort of loud, abrasive, annoying call. And I suppose this guy's also got quite an annoying call in the summer months. We're like so happy to hear them, and then after week 3 or 4, it's like, oh please, can they stop? Because they are the first birds to call in the morning, and they are very, very loud. I'm not going to attempt it with my mouth because it is a very hard call to imitate. Very, very hard call, but that was it, folks. We saw a kill. Yes, it was a kill. It was only a beetle, but it was a kill nonetheless. And I think that was a very uncomfortable mouthful. Ah, interesting. Thanks, Nix. So Louise, who's in FC at the moment, just checked online, and kookaburras are terrestrial tree kingfishers. Isn't that marvelous? I didn't know that, but we do know that Tom is agreeing. Thank you very much, Tom. We do know that Australia and Africa were once connected as a continent, and whatever birds might have got across there, I doubt happened with the continental split. But we do know that there's some plants that are remnants, and there's definitely a very, very linked geological table between Australia and South Africa, or Africa itself, and the birds probably just flew over. But it evolved at a completely different time and place, and that's why they've got marsupials, and we don't have marsupials. Yes, they do, Tom. A kookaburra has a laugh, and what an evil laugh it sometimes appears to be. But very, very nice sometimes to hear them. I heard them a few times in Australia, but I think it can get a little bit monotonous. But as all birds do, we enjoy the call. I enjoy the sounds of bird calls. First lady, you want to know if we get water or fishing kingfishers? Yes, we do. Most certainly the pied kingfisher and the giant kingfisher, as well as the malachite and half-collared, are definitely for water fishing kingfishers. The woodland, the grey-headed, as well as the brown hooded, all of them can fish, but they're more of a sort of woodland species. They feed primarily on insects and small invertebrates, small lizards, things like that. So doesn't mean they won't fish, but it means that their habitat is more away from water versus the pied and the giant and the malachite that are very water specific sort of birds. And then the pygmy is also more of a sort of woodland feeding specialist as opposed to feeding on fish. Joshua wants to know which birds are the most annoying. Well, top of the list would have to be it's interesting. It's an interesting list. There's a couple on the top, but I'm used to them. Okay, so FC is saying hardy-dar ibis and Egyptian goose. Those are going to be my two top of the list. And then a woodland kingfisher can get quite annoying. A crested francolin, just because of the time at which it starts making its noise. It's very repetitive, it's very loud, and if they happen to have their covey or their sort of roost just outside your bedroom, it is not the nicest way to wake up, especially on those mornings you want to sleep in. They don't know that you get a sleep in. They don't get a sleep in, so why should you? So those are probably the 3 or 4 of the most annoying birds out here. But then again, we're in the bush. This is where they are. This is what they're doing. Beck, yes, the kookaburras, I'm sure, drive you crazy. I have no doubt on that. I only heard them a couple times, and they were a little bit manic, because it's that very evil sort of laugh, and like looks at you and it laughs. And you're like, what are you looking at? Why are you laughing like that? Oh. Have we found him again? We're doing big loops, folks, and there is something as well that I was looking for. A marvelous, marvelous elephant coming through the thickets. Wisteria whisperer, the noises that vultures make are not so bad, to be honest. When they are feeding, they don't make... Well, that's not going to wake you up in the morning. It's quite a nice sound when vultures are feeding. But one thing I can tell you, when vultures are mating, it's quite an interesting sound. The first time I heard it, it's this rasping sort of sort of call. You're like, what is that? It sounds like a cat busy killing something. And you go towards a tree and you'll see these two whiteback vultures doing the typical bird mount, and they'll be doing that call. And it's not annoying though. It's actually quite nice because it is the circle of life. Can you see the elephant that we found? I think he's going to come and say hello. I hope so. It's been a quiet afternoon for us. And maybe he's going to come and throw some sticks for us. We are sitting right next to the Marula tree. There are still a couple Marulas on the floor here. Let's see, he's going to be right towards us. This is fantastic. Feeding as he goes, pretending he doesn't mind too much. He's going to walk as close to us as he wants to. Hello, boy. He's going to give us a little show now because he's big, isn't he big? He's very big. His eyes are a little bit open. His tail is not wagging. Hello, boy. Apologies for the pole that's about to come into screen. We do have the roof on. There is a chance of thunderstorms. See, we're right by the Marula tree where he wanted to come, and he's going to come as close as he can. He's not in any hurry. He's not concerned. He is absolutely gorgeous. Hello, boy. Busy sniffing on the ground to try to find any Marulas that might have escaped. The grass underneath this tree is completely flat and dead from, I'm sure, countless elephants trampling it. See to the left of your screen, there's some elephant dung there, and the grass is all yellow and dead. It's been completely squashed. And he's playing a game of hide and seek. He thinks we can't see him. You feel how the wind has picked up. There's definitely something brewing on the horizon. Elephants absolutely love the wet weather. Here he's coming. Let's see if he's going to get that one Marula in the road there. If he can smell it. Doesn't want to come any closer to us. Shame, boy. Oh, he's not very happy. He just told me, don't come any closer, you. That is supposed to be very scary, and on a big elephant bull or a big cow, when they do that, the ears actually flap against the side of the body and they make this very sort of loud sort of slapping sound. I clearly can't do it with my skin. He's coming back again. Sorry, Nix. He's being very inquisitive. His head is raised. He's trying to see us. Elephants look down their nose at their past or through their tusks. So when an elephant lifts its head like this, not being aggressive, it's just trying to see exactly what's going on in front of it. And with the wind blowing like this, there's all sorts of confusing smells in the air. All he wants is the Marulas on the floor. And who are these people standing so close to the Marula tree? Really? The questing of the Marula trunk. I was looking for some earlier. Couldn't find any. I had to show the kids only the seed. Yes, Susan, he's very shy. He's very shy. He really wants to come and play, but he just doesn't quite know how to introduce himself. If he just comes out of there and stops playing in the bushes, we can say hello. We can act like adults. We can get along just fine. Francis, elephants, when they feed, you want to know if they see or smell the Marulas. I think they primarily smell it. You watch him, he's got his head in that bush there. He clearly can't see the ground, and his trunk will move around questing for something. I mean, you can smell Marulas. I got a few in my room. You walk in, and it's just a Marula heaven, the smell. So they can smell them from a very long way away. They actually know which trees are ripe and which aren't. And I've watched elephants. Hello, boy. He's still not very happy with us. Oh! Sorry about the aerial. He's coming behind the car. I'm not going to move. I don't want to disturb him. He's only a youngster. He's only a young bull. And now he's pretending to feed again, as if the behavior he just did was nothing really. I didn't mean to be mean, I was just shouting. Okay, folks, well, we're going to quickly go over to Scott and see he's got a little tortoise and something is happening.
Yes, well, we have a tortoise that is busy getting feasted upon by hundreds upon thousands of maggots, all jostling to try and get to a piece of the decaying meat. And it's a sad scene. It's a ginormous male leopard tortoise, and I'm not too sure how it died. Nothing's eaten it. You can see its one leg sticking out there, so had something killed it that wanted to eat it, it would have ripped its legs off and fed on them, yet it's still got all of its limbs intact. And I'm wondering if it maybe just didn't die of old age. It's a massive, massive individual. And the reason I know that it's a male is because, thankfully, it's upside down. And you can see that its plastron, that flat part of its shell that rubs against the ground, is completely flat, whereas a female will have a concave plastron, so that... Oh no, sorry, I've got it the wrong way around. Look at me go. The male will have a concave plastron, so this is a female. Because you can imagine a male trying to mount a female. If he didn't have a concave plastron, he would keep sliding off, which would be highly frustrating. So this is a big, big female, and interesting stuff. I wonder how long it's been dead for. I mean, flies are very, very effective at what they do, laying their eggs that hatch very quickly, and it just takes 3 days for a fly to go from maggot form into adult form, and then can then lay eggs again. So they've got a very quick turnaround, and that's what makes them so successful. Dale, you suggest that maybe an elephant stood on it. It doesn't seem like its shell's broken in any way, so I don't think that was the unfortunate fate of this individual. It absolutely stinks, and the wind is blowing towards us, so let's get out of here. Linda, you agreeing that this is yuck and we need to get out of here, so we'll do just that. Whew. Well done to Seb, who actually smelt it. We were hoping it was going to be the kill of a leopard, but alas, it was just a dead tortoise being feasted on by maggots, not the carnivore we were hoping to find. But still really interesting. The wind is picking up. I've heard some thunder off in the distance, and let's just hope that we stay dry for the rest of the safari. As much as this area needs rain, we don't, personally. Well, very happy to hear that my good friend Davy Kidd is watching from a small little fishing town on the north coast of Durban, and he's suggesting that my driving has deteriorated so much that I need to carry not one but 2 spare tires, the extra one being on the hood of the vehicle. And Davy, that's not the case, fear not. My driving is fine, and this is the only spare wheel we have on this vehicle. This is the special vehicle that we use for droning, and we've built a kind of boot on the back of the vehicle where we can put the drone when we're driving around. Sadly, one of the drone's propellers broke the other day. That's why we haven't been using it much, but we're getting a spare one in. So yeah, Darby, it's not my bad driving. It's just the fact that we've had to modify this vehicle to accompany all of the toys. You'll also notice we've got this big kind of solid section over here, which the other vehicles don't have, and a whole bunch of other little bits and pieces that allows James, when we're doing TV shows, to host from here. So there's a microscope cam and a drone that comes along with this vehicle. Good to know you're watching, Davy. I hope all is well. And we are going to continue on with our quest for Tundi and send you back to Brent, who I'm guessing has got a similar thought up his alley.
Well, we're back, and I'm now looking for Tundi. So the last tracks of Tundi were in this very thick area this morning, where we can't get a vehicle in, but I'm hoping maybe she's left the cub and she's gone for a little meander as it's got a bit cooler. So I just saw something funny in the distance there. It was not funny, haha. It wasn't funny anything, it was just a funny looking branch. So I'm hoping she's come out here. She probably might have smelt or even heard Hosana in that area, because there were hyenas all around him this morning, and they were whooping and making noise and just being jolly old hyenas. So I think she would have kept to this side. This little river system here that goes into joins the river system that comes out of Buffalo's Hook Dam, as well as this little one here, and then it joins and becomes the river system where Hosana and Shongile were born, where Tandi's cub was born, and that lovely little drainage line that comes off the Moati. So I'm hoping now that there's quite a lot of strong wind, it's really good hunting weather, so maybe she'll leave the cub hidden here somewhere and come out for a stroll and see if she can catch something. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Until then, I'm checking all the termite mounds and vantage points in this area. Now remember, if you have any questions for us, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube or another platform, just pop your question in the feed below. Dum dum dum. Come on, Tandy. That's a very interesting handle we've got here. Infernal apathy. I would like to know, why do female leopards live longer? Less competition for territory is the answer. So what happens with a male leopard, which is very, very interesting. So from about Hosana's age till about 5, they wander around till they're big enough to challenge for their own territory. And once they're big enough to challenge for their own territory, they'll fight and often kill an older male. And if not kill, that older male is then pushed, and then he goes into another male's territory, and it's a real big uphill battle, and they tend to sort of lose condition quite quickly at that time, especially if they're over 12 years old. But one of the more interesting things with male leopards is their swinging territory. Now, it's quite funny because it is a swinging territory, and I'll explain why. So, male leopards tend to have a longer sort of time at the top than two. Oh, well, we'll finish this male leopards and their swinging habits after you go have a look at the bird quickly.
Well, yeah, this bird is just too good to be true, and they don't often sit around so calmly, so close to the vehicle, so we're getting some great views of this African hoopoe. And I'm not too sure what it's doing. I think it could well be relaxing on the ground rather than sitting on a branch in the trees, because the branches are blowing around wildly with all of the wind that we're experiencing here. So I'm guessing that was the bird's theory, just to be able to be perched on solid ground rather than rocking around like a bees. Where'd it go? Oh, it fluttered off. Good. Well, sorry to take you away from Brent and his discussion about leopards. I'm sure he was giving you some great insights into what goes on with them. Still no further track epidemic, but I think the fact that both Brent and I are scouring this area for any signs is definitely going to increase our chances. And my signal's a little bit shaky, so I'm going to send you to Brent so he can continue where he left off.
Well, I think Scott and I have a similar plan when it comes to Tandy, because I just passed the very same tortoise that was full of maggots. Now, probably been flipped over in a fight with another male tortoise. That does happen from time to time, and no predators or scavengers found it yet. But we're talking about swinging leopards. Now, of course, all leopards, you could say, are swingers, and multiple females that they all mate with, and the females will actually come out of territory to mate. Now, as I say, so male leopards have a longer time sort of at the top than male lions. So male lions are generally only really mating for about 4 to 5 years before they are, or normally sometimes even less, 4 years before they are ousted by new males, and that's to try and ensure that they don't end up mating with their daughters. Now, leopards have a slightly different situation, and it was very fascinating. So the guys from Panthera were showing us the territorial maps of the different male leopards and how they move over their life. So 5, 6 take over a territory, establish themselves, mate with all the females, have all the cubs, and then when they get to about 9, 10, it's not a big shift, but their territory swings into an area away from the core of where their sort of core females were. Now, we definitely saw that with, with Mvula. And Mvula was a bit unlucky. He got squashed between 2 other males. But even with Tingana, his territory swung from Arethusa. There was also obviously pressure from Anderson and that, but Anderson's actually the perfect example. There was no leopard that could challenge him in that area where he was the most dominant. And what has happened now is he's got a bit older. He's got to that 9, 10 years old. So his daughters are potentially coming to estrus now, and they're not sure why. It's probably just an instinctive thing that then a male leopard will actually swing his territory and move his territory slightly so it doesn't encompass those core territories of the females that he's probably sired. Because with female leopards, what happens is they will sequester or give away a core section of their territory to their daughter, so she's got an easier start. As those females become sort of sexually mature and sexually active, and their fathers sort of, without even knowing it, move territories again. It's not a massive move, but it sort of tries to alleviate that interbreeding. So it's quite interesting if you look at the intricacies of the leopard territories, and particularly the males, how they move as they get to that sort of 8, 9, sometimes 10 years old. But it sounds like Steve's got some cheeky pachyderms.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Brent. This boy's been playing with us for the last, however long it was since you last were with us. Apologies for the poll. He's hearing the thunder, and he's not liking the thunder. He's smashing trees. He's chasing the giraffe. He's doing some funny backwards kick with his leg every now and again. And he's very proud of himself whenever he chases or smashes something. He walks away with his head held high and his tail stiff and erect, and he walks away looking very chuffed with himself. And now he's just on the other side of this bush and thinks he's in a secure place. But he's very interested. I think he's just lonely. He's quite a young bull. I'd say he's probably only recently been... Here we go. Let's see him smash that tree. Come on. Break one of the hardest woods around, young fella. He's probably just been displaced from one of the herds, and he's a little bit grumpy about that. He's now busy feeding on a dead piece of wood. There's nothing in there. This is what we call displacement feeding, where he's actually watching me and not what he's doing. Look at his eyes. His eyes are very wide. Can you see that, folks? When I talk about hard eyes, he's very alert towards us, and that is what you always pay attention to in an elephant, especially in an elephant cow. If her eyes are hard like that, you know that she's not very relaxed. But he's just a grumpy young lad who doesn't have any friends or family, so thinks he can just chase and molest and chase whoever he wants to around, and thinks there's no repercussions. Yes, Sophia, I love this too. Cheeky elephants are one of my favorite. I think I seem to say that a lot these days, but elephants are awesome to be with, but when a young elephant bull starts playing with us, it's fantastic. Oh, yes, Ravinda, his eyes can be very intimidating, and that's something a lot of people don't look at, is the eyes, but they can often tell you far more than any other sort of body language the elephant is portraying. There it is. Look how he's looking at us. Very, very cool. I don't know if you can hear the lightning or the thunder in the background, but he's challenging it. That was the lightning that just called there. Apologies for the poll. Let me just roll back a little bit. If I start my engine, he's just going to get excited and try and chase us. Paula would like to know what animals can see in color in the bush, and a lot of them can. All the bird species, I believe. I'm not too sure about owls, but all of your daytime birds, monkeys, baboons, humans, and then they reckon that a giraffe can see in a small spectrum of red. I'm not sure where I read that, but they reckon giraffe can see a small spectrum. And then, what else can see color? Insects, I believe, can see color, but they also mainly UV. So I think that might be it. You know, birds, mammals in the form of monkeys, baboons, and people, because we're in the bush as well. And I'm not sure if elephants can see color. I'm not sure at all about that. It's possible. I wonder if any of the viewers out there can help answer that question. What any animals I might have missed that can see color in the bush? And the purpose of seeing color is to see depth and to see ripeness. And also in birds to see mating preference and to see mating displays and colorations. Without the color, they wouldn't see that. And obviously, monkeys and baboons feed on fruits, and they want them to be ripe. You know, he's using his tusk there to break that small knob thorn. Sorry, folks, I don't want to reposition in case I disturb him, and then he ends up running off or challenging us again. And then we can see color, but the purpose of color is to see, obviously, ripeness of fruits, and also to see, in baboons, they can see if the females are ready for mating. Birds, they can see the mating displays and colors, and then also to see depth. Whereas a lot of the animals that see black and white, majority of the animals out here, it's because they want to see at night. And so the rod cells, which help them see black and white, also enable them to see at night, which is awesome. Dale, the skin on the elephant's trunk, it's rough. You want to know if it's hard? It's quite rough. It's very bristly from the hairs, but then the trunk itself, it's quite soft and pliable. It's almost like a big fatty deposit, so to speak. It's very movable, like it's hollow inside, and very flexible, but it's quite rough on the outside with very sharp, bristly hairs on the trunk. It's actually quite something to touch, but it's not hard like the body would be with the hide and bone behind it. It's got the same sort of feel to it, but it's movable, it's loose, it's spongy. It's actually quite something to touch and feel. So from a scientific point of view, a lot of people, I know the kids ask Scott in the school drive, what do elephants eat? And so scientists will follow animals around and they'll watch them, observe them in the bush like we are now. We had him feeding on a black monkey orange before. He was just feeding on a knobthorn, marula fruits, different types of grass. And then we can go and observe those plants and grasses if we need to. And then also by taking fecal samples of the dung with microscopes, we can find out exactly what is in their diet, because each leaf has got a certain type of code or pattern that can be seen under a microscope. And then you can find out exactly what the habitat or the food preference is for not just elephants, but any other animal you might be studying. Okay, let's move up a little bit. See if we can get him in another shot. LJK, most definitely the best African animal out there, because we see it all the time. My favorite, as I've said to viewers before, is the honey badger. We had some marvelous tracks this morning of a honey badger, but that was all we managed to get. How's that, Senzi? That's all we managed to get was the tracks. So I'd love to see a honey badger, but because we see elephants all the time and I love their behavior, we get to play with cheeky elephants like this. He is now busy feeding on a raisin, one of the grievous species that's growing off the termite mound, and he's munching it down. He's quite relaxed now. I think he's over the thunder in the distance. Okay, well, we're going to be leaving this elephant bull shortly, and while we do so, let's go back over to Scotty D for an update.
Our update is that we have raced back in the direction of camp because we just had a few spots of drizzle and some very dark clouds looming off to the north, which is where the bad weather comes from. So thought rather let's just go get our roof on, then we can head back out without worrying about being flooded. But while we head back to camp, I am specifically checking an area where we may just get lucky and bump into a young male leopard called Tumba. Now, this morning, some of you who may have been on the Sunrise Safari would have remembered me trying to explain what the fence is like where he had got in. And we'll be able to show you from here the kind of perimeter fence of the camp. And that is what he had managed to get inside. A little bit more to the left, might be a bit clearer. There we go. There you can kind of see the electrified fence where there's 2 strands that are on the short vertical pole and then a few more strands on the diagonal kind of semi-horizontal pole. So it makes it tricky for anything to get in, but I have seen Marula, female leopard, sneak under the fence before in an area where there's a kind of a little bit of a riverbed, and of course a leopard could easily jump over it if it wanted to. But he was within that camp, and we had actually gone for a swim in one of the camp swimming pools. Thankfully there were no guests, and there was the borehole that pumps water up to the camps broke last night, so at least we could have a refreshing dip in a pool, because it was a very hot day. And after we made our way back from the one pool, there's 2 camps within that fence. When we were making our way back towards our camp from the camp where we had a swim, we found some very fresh tracks of, in all likelihood, that young male leopard tumba. So no further sign of him leaving. Maybe he's got a kill in there. There's been no guests in camp today either, so not as many people moving around the kind of camp grounds as there normally would be. So who knows, maybe he's just enjoying the lodge to himself. But I'm guessing unless he made a kill in there, which is a possibility, he may have popped out, and this is an area where he loves to spend time. We actually came out on drive on the same route, just checking for any sign of him, but didn't have any joy. So if we do find sign of him now, that means we'll know it's nice and fresh. Oh, I was hoping these red-billed woodhoopers, there was one that was about to land on this branch right in front of us, but it fluttered off, so we'll continue on. Aaron, you'd like to know how a heavy storm will affect the animals. Well, I mean, there's not really anywhere for them to go. Going under a bush is only going to kind of ever so slightly reduce the amount of rain that's hitting you, but you're still going to get drenched. I mean, you're not going to stay dry. So for all of the kind of furry animals, they'll be soaking wet and possibly a little bit cold. You know, animals like elephants, I think they're indifferent in a storm. Maybe the young calves get a little bit scared of lightning, perhaps. But yeah, I think it's nothing too serious for them. You know, young cubs can get washed out of their dens and riverbeds, and of course there are some kind of tragic stories if there's torrential downpours with very, very heavy rains and kind of mini flash floods. But a general downpour is not going to cause too much hardship to any animals, in my opinion. Unless, of course, you're an unlucky duiker that gets struck by a bolt of lightning. That happened not too far from where we're actually going now, a couple of weeks ago. It was obviously trying to seek refuge underneath the tree, which is the last place you should seek refuge when there is lightning, because the tree acts like a conductor, and if you're underneath it, you'll get fried as well. And that's exactly what happened to this poor duiker. It got frazzled. And during that very same storm, there were actually, I think, 2 hippo that got... Let me just stop for a second and see if you can hear the thunder. As if... It could have actually been 3 hippos that got struck by lightning in one of the dams to the south of where we are here. Come on, lightning. Or thunder, rather. It was grumbling earlier. But Murphy's law is that when we stop to try and make you listen, it all goes quiet. can definitely hear the wind blowing, and I'm not sure if you possibly heard one or two kind of grumbles from the clouds, but sounds like it's intensifying, so maybe it'll get a little bit more serious later. Rabinda, you say how this weather makes you want to have a cup of hot chocolate. That sounds great. Why don't you do that? We've got a very nice hot chocolate drink here in South Africa called Milo. Not sure if you get it where you live, Rabinda, but if you do, I would make a cup of hot Milo. Woo! Really tasty. And if you don't have Milo, try and find some. It's good cold or hot. Doesn't matter, whichever you prefer. Okie dokie. Well, we're going to continue on, put our rain roof on, and then head back out and see what we can find. And while we do that, we're going to send you back to Mr. Leo Smith, who's found some elephants.
Well, we seem to be a little bit luckier where we are at the moment. We're getting a few spots of rain, but nothing too bad just yet. We have come across a lovely herd of elephants. I can see about four. I can see four at the moment, but it sounds like there's quite a few more spread through the mixed broadleaf woodland. Now, elephants can be quite playful in this weather. They do like it when it's a bit cooler. Hey, you? Here we go. Enjoying the lush summer vegetation. And of course, they struggle a little bit more during the winter months. Hello, Mina. Mina would like to know, is it true that elephants have a very good memory? Now, this is a very contentious subject you're bringing up here, Mina. Oh, yes, you're very naughty. They have obviously an extensive instinctive set of skills when it comes to survival, but I would say yes, they probably do have a decent memory. Very good, I'm not sure. But they will remember certain trees or fruiting areas or water holes that come into fruit or hold water during very dry periods. So yes, I would say that they do have a decent memory. And of course they've got such a large brain, so it would make sense that they have a greater brain capacity than certain other animals, because relative to body size, rhino and hippo have relatively small brains, because the elephant has a very big brain. And of course they are able to use their trunk extensively as a tool. So do they have a good memory? Better than an impala. As good as a chimpanzee? Oh, I'm not sure. But yes, no, I'd say on average they have one of the better memories out of the animal kingdom. Well, I don't know if you can hear that. You can hear this thunder that Scott was trying to hear. He shall let you listen to it. What? Oh, he's playing. Look, he's got a hat. Oh, it's gone. No, it's back. Dingo would like to know, do adult elephants ever trip? Occasionally. All animals trip. I've seen lion trip, leopard trip, elephants, rhinos, hippos. They tend to slip quite often, especially when it's wet and they've got to go up or down some steep stuff. They do tend to slip from time to time. And they do trip over the odd branch or hole in the ground. Yes, they can trip. Not too often, though. It was always very peaceful. Well, not always, but most of the time it's very, very peaceful when you spend time with elephants. Hello, Mina. Mina's got another question for us, and it's, do animals get colds or fevers like human beings? They can get colds or fevers. It tends to be more primate related, but of course, I mean, avian flus, bird flus, swine flus, pig flus, it is possible, but a lot of the animals will hold immunities to that. And quite often when an animal gets a fever, it will be from an infection, from an injury or a wound. Oh dear. Rain is catching up with us, and we might have to get moving and follow suit with Scott. I'm hoping that we might be able to run around the peripheries and not get wet, but it suddenly started raining a little bit harder. Ashley, sorry, can you go again with that question next? I was concentrating on the rain. Ashley is wondering, can elephants see directly in front of them? Yes, they can, but as long as it's not too close to them, and they can see in front of them. Not as well as a lot of other animals, because there we go. If you look at this elephant walking straight to us, when she turns her head, there we go. You can see they do have good frontal vision. An elephant's eyesight is not as bad as it was once thought to be, but it is definitely not its predominant, what's the word I'm looking for? Sense. They use their ears and for hearing and their big trunk for smelling. Okay, I'm going to link to Steve because I'm going to try to run away from this rain. If not, I'm going to have to run back to camp and put my roof on like Scott. So while we do that, let's go see what Steve's up to.
Thank you, Brent. We already... Oh, there goes the Wahlberg's eagle, loving the wind. Sorry, it was possible to catch him as he flew past us there. As this wind has picked up, the birds of prey are going to be enjoying their flight. It's possible that we're going to find any predator that might be walking around, moving, because Scott had tracks of a female leopard, possibly 2 female leopards in this area this morning, and there's a good chance, because the wind has picked up, that it's a good time for a leopard or a lion to move around. And that being because their hearing, obviously the hearing of the animals such as kudu and impala is impaired quite a lot by the rustling of the leaves in the trees, and you often find them getting very spooked out in this environment. So it allows the leopard and the lion to stalk with a lot more ease. Even though the leopard and the lion have got a very nice stalking gait, they still are detected by those massive ears of the herbivores that live out here and rely on their hearing for survival. Hello Dale, how are you doing this afternoon? Prismatic coloration, you'd like an explanation? Very simple. Basically it is, if you're looking for color Prismatic coloration, which is for daytime, just having a look at that, is a vulture's nest. There's no one on it at the moment. We keep checking to see if they're going to start breeding. Prismatic coloration, Dale, for diurnal animals, for example, ones that see color, are going to have contrasting black with either red, yellow, or orange. In the case of the, I've just put my books away because of the rain. In the case of the monarch butterfly or something like that. Oh no, Dale. Let me quickly, there we go, let's talk about a kudu while I quickly search. There we have a kudu hiding in the thickets, hoping that the leopard is not going to see it. She's looking quite relaxed actually, feeding. Notice how the ears are moving all around, very, very versatile with that mouth. Isn't she gorgeous? She's a very pretty animal. And so, Dale, prismatic coloration for daytime or animals that see color are a contrasting red, orange. Obviously, my book is in the bottom of my bag. Red, orange, or yellow, which indicates that they are either poisonous or very, very distasteful. And I'll show you a picture once we find it. But we'll just keep looking at the kudu. Look at those marvelous ears. But then in the case of nocturnal animals, Dale, you get contrasting black and white. So, for example, a skunk is classic nocturnal prismatic coloration for for poison, toxin, very distasteful. Honey badger, it's a mustelid. It does give off a bit of a scent, but it's also very aggressive. Civets, also, they give off serious distasteful colors or flavors. And here we've got one of the most aposematic colorated beetles in the bush, called a blister beetle. You see the black and the yellow, and that's just one of them. Another one on this side, and if I turn the page, you'll see there's a whole lot more of them on the page here. The black very contrasting with the yellow, or with the red, or with an orange. Now, if I had to eat a blister beetle, Dale, it would kill me. It would blister my stomach to the point where I died. So it is indicating highly toxic sort of poisons within it, and it's something called cantharidin within the blister beetle, and if you get that on your skin, it causes serious blisters to the skin. It's not very painful, but if you pop them, they spread. It's a very ugly looking process. If anyone's ever had it, it's not very pretty, but it's not going to kill you. Senzo is nodding. He's had it quite often. You might get one in your shirt and you don't know, move it around, and next thing you know, you've got these welts and blisters all over your back. But that won't kill you. But if you ate a blister beetle, goodbye, see you later. So that is not ideal. So it's warning. It's basically saying, leave me alone. Aposematic means leave me alone coloration, basically. And that's what it means. The kudu, which is just browsing there, we're going to move on. And so what it's doing is aposematic coloration doesn't actually save an animal's life. Sometimes an animal has to learn that is distasteful, and so it will munch on one and they go, "Ooh, that was disgusting," and then it'll never do it again. But it doesn't mean that aposematic coloration saves that individual's life. For example, the first time a leopard attacks a honey badger, it goes, "Ooh, that looks very nice," and then it tries to kill it. It takes 45 minutes of absolute agony and anguish. It leaves the honey badger alone, and then the next day it's like, okay, I'm going to leave those guys alone. Here we've got two vultures in the tree, probably from the nest we were just looking at. Monique, orange is your favorite color. If you played with the blister beetle, it's fine. You could put them on your hand, but as soon as you disturb them or squash them or do anything that hurts them, they give off that cantharidin, which they actually get or derive it from certain plant material that they eat, and it gives them that toxin that excretes on the skin, leaves very bad blisters. But, you know, some birds might eat a blister beetle, it might kill them, so it doesn't save that blister beetle's life. So I hope, Dale, that's answered your questions on aposematic coloration. Here we have two white-back vultures, and often when you look at birds of prey, you can actually tell the direction the wind is blowing. Especially a big bird like a vulture, they'll often face into the wind because it's easier to stand, first of all, because the wind is blowing against them. They can sort of lean into it. And also when they come and land into the tree, they often fly into the wind to give them that little bit of an updraft in the form of brakes, which then allows them to land in the tree. They're not the most elegant of landers, and it's possible because it's quite windy. They've moved away from their big Marula tree nest with lots of leaves and branches to come here in the more open, where there's no chance of them getting snagged in the branches of the tree as the wind blows it around. We were watching, if you were with us last week, we were with Hukamuri, and he was busy hunting. We just went off air when we watched him a little while longer. We saw him hunting for quite a while, and we saw something come out of the bush. He was so interested. As soon as we saw what it was, as soon as he saw what it was, Dale, he suddenly stopped and lay down, gave completely no interest, and we saw it was a civet. So he realized, ooh, those things are revolting. He didn't even try and chase it or look at it again. He just said, I'm done. Okay, so enough of aposematic coloration. Let's go over to Scotty D for an update.
What coloration were you talking about, Steve? Only kidding. Very interesting stuff. Now, we have come to a waterhole in the hope that young Hosana was heading in this direction. He apparently moved away from his tasty bushbuck kill in order, in all likely, to quench his thirst. And he headed in this general direction, certainly not close to where we are, where he's got his kill, probably about half a mile away. But he could either pop out here, or possibly at another little mud wallow not too far from here. And I think the other mud wallow would probably be slightly closer. I've also kind of lost track of time from when he left, and I'm trying to kind of guess how long it would take for him to come here. if this was in fact where he wanted to come and have a drink. But no joy. So let's head off to the other little pan where I'm actually more confident. That was the initial kind of thought of where we might get him. This was an afterthought, kind of on the way there. The other pan I think would be slightly closer by to where he was. Very good, so we're going to keep checking up on that and send you back across to Brains.
It seems like we've got lucky and we've managed to move away from the rain on our way back home, and the rain seems to be blowing further to the north. And we've come across a lovely group of kudu. And you can see they are on edge in this weather. There's still gusting winds around. You can see how those massive radar dish-like ears of theirs are sweeping from side to side, trying to pick up any possible danger. And she's even stopped mid-chewing of the cud. You can see, there we go, boom, and to listen. And her ears pointing directly at us, so she's probably listening to, there we go, just give me a look as well, at us. And you see her other ear, how it moves independently, trying to pick up any other possible danger that might be about. Quite a nice big group, probably about 15 or so. Now, Alyssa is asking if there is an injured animal, are we allowed to help it? Alyssa, even if we were allowed to help it, we choose not to. Now, this is a natural ecosystem. We do not want to be playing gardeners in Eden. It does not need our help. It is a very arrogant and human thing to think we know better. The system works. An injured animal will provide food to the predators, hyenas, lions, leopard, and the only time we will intervene is if it is an injury that has been caused by human beings. If it is, however, a completely natural circumstance, we do not interfere. Certain parts of Africa do it differently. That's their prerogative. I personally believe we shouldn't interfere. Now, one of the cases with this is in the Mara, where often the famous male lions particularly, when they are injured while fighting with other males, they are immediately, they've got better medical aids or hospital plans than most people, and what they do is then they come and dart and fix those animals, and it is causing a bit of a problem in the Mara with the lion dynamics, because those male lions theoretically should be dead by 12, 13, even a bit younger in certain circumstances. What's happening now is they keep getting patched up, they keep surviving longer and longer, and it is causing females from the prides to migrate away from the prides, the female with her cubs taking them away to try stop inbreeding and mating with their fathers. Now, when human beings often think they're doing good, often we're not. We're just fiddling with stuff that works perfectly without us interfering. Remember, we always tend to forget that we are part of the ecosystem at the end of the day. Now, Sinak is wondering what animals are related to kudu. Inyala and bushbuck are the two animals that are most closely related to kudu that we get here on Djuma and Chitwa. They are all members of the spiral-horned antelope family. And there are a few others. There's lesser kudu as well that occur in the drier parts of East Africa, as well as bongo that lives in the deepest and darkest of the rainforests, mountain inyala in Ethiopia, and then the eland species are also relatives, but not as close as the others, and Sitatunga, of course. But quickly across to Steve, who's got another antelope.
Yes, indeed, this one is much smaller than the kudu, and it has very straight horns. This little male is standing very still in the grass that is swirling around him, and he's hoping that nothing will detect him That is their way of keeping very, very... Yeah, he has stood for a long time. It's because it's so windy, he doesn't know where to run to. So his best place to be is to just stand where he is. And apparently we can't see him. He thinks he's invisible to us. And his ears are just moving in every direction. He's listening to my cool, calming voice. And he's going, okay, that's fine. That's a vegetarian. I'll be fine with that guy. Now he just saw Senzo. Do you see the look? Uh-oh. Where am I going to go to? Left? Right? Senzo is not a vegetarian. And it's such a beautiful animal. We don't get to see them for this long. They normally stand still for a while, and as soon as you turn your attention on them, they run away, which is what they do. Yeah, their horns are a lot longer than most people think, and they are very, very dangerous. Male steenbok, when they fight, can be very, very territorial with each other, and those are not used for fighting, they're used for stabbing, and not for horning like all the other antelopes might do. It's not a contest of strength, it's a contest of stabbing the other opponent and hopefully winning with a vital blow, something that the bushbuck will do as well if it gets to that. Oh, he's calming down now. They're busy grooming with the teeth. Isn't that a beautiful animal? Please take your screenshots, folks. This is a fabulous photo of a very beautiful, very pretty male steenbok. Yes, Stevie, it is a beautiful face. It's a beautiful animal, to be honest. I was horrified the one time I was following lions hunting, and a steenbok ran out of a bush and 6 lions grabbed it. Can you imagine 6 lions grabbing that? It was quite a battle as they ripped it in two, and then 2 lions were left just licking up the blood on the floor, while one lion stood there doing nothing, and the other 3 had bits and pieces of Mr. Steenbok, or Mrs., I don't know. It didn't last very long. But not ideal food for lion. They're a little bit too small, but definitely for a cheetah or a leopard. Dale, is a steenbok as big as a sheep? A steenbok is actually very small in comparison. I mean, I don't know what sheep species you're talking about, but let me have a quick look in my book at the weight of a steenbok, and maybe I can find it quickly. Maybe it's going to take me to the reference. But they are the second smallest antelope that we find here. The duiker is a bit bigger. Ali, duikers are a bit bigger than steenbok, but I'll give you the measurements now. Let me just find it for you. Okay, so if I show you on the front here, actually, what's so nice about this book is it gives you the perspective on the bottom here of the bottom right here, Senzi, of the steenbok to a human. There is the dimensions of the steenbok to the human, and in the same breath, let me just turn the page over to where the duiker was. Where's the duiker? There's the blue duiker, red duiker, common duiker at the top. There we go. Quite similar in sort of size, but I'll tell you the exact. So shoulder height 50 centimeters for the duiker, and the steenbok is, where is he? Where's the steenbok? Where have you gone, young lad? Okay, is also 50 centimeters, which is quite strange. I actually thought the duiker was bigger, but the duiker are a little bit heavier, and they seem to be bigger in their body makeup. They're a little bit more round on the shoulder, but definitely heavier than a steenbok. And here is the smallest antelope that we find here. Seenak, steenbok and dikdik are not related that I know of. Dikdik are a very interesting animal. I've never seen one before. They're a very interesting animal with very sort of long sort of protuberance of a face. So I don't know much about them, but we don't get any of them down here in South Africa, and I don't know if they are related to steenbok, but I have a very good feeling Mr. Brent Leo Smith will have the answer to that question. Don't you think, Nix? I reckon Brent will know the answer to that. He is still there. I can't believe it. So, Seenak, we might get Brent to answer that for you. And while he sits here, absolutely loving He's not really loving it. I think he's absolutely terrified with this wind. Okay, so Brent is shaking his head, and he's saying a categorical no. I didn't think they would be related, but I really don't know much about a dik-dik. I know they've got a funny-looking face. I've never even seen one. Apparently you got them up in the Mara, but I didn't see one in my time up there. Okay, so now that the steenbok is slowly starting to relax and start to feed again, let's go back to Scotty D and see if he's managed to evade the rain and see what his updates are.
Well, thankfully no rain just yet, but at least we have the necessary protection in case it does start. And I don't know if steenbok are related in any way to the dik-dik. I don't think they would be my guess.